Chaos slaves. An ordinary workday in the 41st millennium can be hard to imagine, especially on worlds controlled by chaos. Across the Eye of Terror and other chaos-held worlds, people still have jobs, except their workplaces are demon-infested ships and fortresses built on suffering. Take, for example, the Slaves of Chaos. On Sycharis, the Wordbearer's homeworld inside the Eye of Terror, slaves build temples. Millions haul stone and other materials through tunnels beneath the cathedrals, building new levels over older structures that eventually collapse. The work never ends because the Wordbearers are always building more places to worship the Chaos Gods. On Medrengard, the Iron Warrior's fortress world, the work is even more brutal. Slaves are sent into the pits to dig, haul materials, and expand the massive fortresses above them. On Zana II, a Dark Mechanicum Hellforge, millions of slaves work inside a factory network that stretches across the planet. Prisoners of war, kidnapped civilians, and people captured during raids all end up in the same place. On many Chaos worlds, the slaves also include mutants. Some have been changed so badly that they are barely human, while others have mutations that make them useful workers or soldiers. On the Plague Planet, beastmen covered in Nurgle's diseases can even be proud of their mutations, seeing them as signs of the Plague God's favor. On other worlds, having the right mutation might get you a better job. You could spend your entire day hauling stone beneath a cathedral on Sycharis, digging through the pits of Medrengard, or working inside the factories of Zana II. The job changes from world to world, but the basic rule stays the same. Keep working until you can't. Cult Preacher. On Sycharis, the Wordbearer's homeworld inside the Eye of Terror, there is no such thing as a secret chaos cult. The whole planet is built around it. Cathedrals, temples, and monuments cover the surface, with new buildings rising over the ruins of older ones. The Basilica of the Word is where the Wordbearer's Dark Council rules in Lorgar's name. Hundreds of huge spires rise from the fortress, some reaching 5 kilometers into the sky. So if you're a cult preacher here, your job is pretty simple. You lead prayers, you teach people about the Chaos Gods, you perform rituals, and can even summon demons. Dark Apostles fill the same role that chaplains fill in Loyalist Space Marine chapters, and their religious authority is tied directly to the Wordbearer's military power. And this is what makes Sycharis different from most Chaos worlds. Walk through one of its cities and religion is everywhere. You hear sermons from the temples, you see symbols of the ruinous powers on the buildings. Children grow up learning the same beliefs as their parents. The next sermon is just another part of the day, like going to school or going to work. Daemon-World Worker. Torvendis is a demon world inside the Maelstrom, and it has been at war for thousands of years. Its bedrock is made from layers of crushed bodies left behind by centuries of fighting. Different rulers have come and gone, including Cornet demons, mortal knights, and Lady Charybdia, a demon princess of Slaanesh. Despite all of that, people still live there. Mortal tribes occupy the mountains, while a city below is home to traders, workers, and mortal armies. People still need food, weapons, and supplies. For a demon world, Torvendis has something close to an ordinary society. Then you wake up and find that the road outside your home has moved. A mountain path you used yesterday is gone. A building that stood there for years has disappeared. Something new has appeared in the distance, and nobody knows where it came from. You still have to get to work. You just have to hope the road is still there when you get home. And this is just another part of living on Torvendis. The planet itself can change without warning, and there is nothing you can do about it. You learn which places to avoid and keep going with your day. Eventually, Torvendis reaches its limit. The planet tears itself apart, killing the people living on it without warning. Forge Worker. Zana II is one of the oldest and most productive Hellforges under Chaos control. The world is ruled by the Dark Mechanicum, the tech priests who fled the Imperium during the Horus Heresy. They sell weapons to anyone who can pay, and their factories need an endless supply of workers. Countless millions of slaves work across Zana II's factory network. The forges produce weapons, war gear, and demon engines beneath a permanent cloud of smoke from the factory stacks. Workers move materials, operate machinery, and keep the production lines running. Flesh is another raw material here, and nobody on the factory floor finds that unusual anymore. You spend your shifts surrounded by machines that never seem to stop. Metal is shaped beside flesh. The air is thick with smoke and the noise never goes away. Somewhere deeper inside the forge, another demon engine is being built, and the thing trapped inside it is screaming while the workers carry on with their jobs. Traitor Doctor. Even the mighty Chaos Space Marines, with their specially engineered bodies that can take a beating that would knock out an ordinary human, eventually need someone to pull out a blade, treat a wound, or patch up their armor. For the mortal workers around them, the stakes are often much higher. Traitor apothecaries perform the same essential tasks as their loyalist counterparts. They're in charge of keeping Space Marines in top shape, harvesting gene seed, and making sure their warriors are ready for battle. But after 10,000 years of exposure to the warp, the nature of their work has changed. You might find yourself lying on a table while the chirurgeon works on a body that's already in flux. Maybe that extra limb will be kept. Maybe it will be cut off. No one can say what your body will look like once the procedure is done. Fabius Bile takes this kind of medicine to a completely different level. Once the chief apothecary of the Emperor's children, he discovered a way to extend his life by cloning his own body and transferring his consciousness into a new one whenever his current form starts to fail. His chirurgeon, a grotesque spider-like machine fused to his spine, pumps fluids and drugs into his bloodstream and can perform surgery while he remains standing. Now imagine ending up under Bile's knife. You are awake while the chirurgeon cuts into you. There is no proper anesthetic and no reason for Bile to stop just because you're in pain. He watches your body react and decides what to change next. If he finds something interesting, the surgery continues. Smuggler. The Screaming Vortex is a warp rift in the Segmentum Obscurus with several stable chaos worlds and functioning economies. Q-Sol, a world of sorcerers, takes part in the regional slave trade, buys weapons from independent heretics in the Ragged Helix, and trades with other worlds in the Vortex. Its ports may look very different from an Imperial port, but the basic idea is the same. People arrive with goods and leave with something else. Independent heretics arm much of the population without answering to any chaos power. They sell weapons in a market where there is always someone looking to buy. Merchants also move weapons, information, slaves, and forbidden technology between chaos territories, maelstrom ports, fringe imperial worlds, and black markets. Chaos warbands need this trade because even the biggest trader legion can't make everything it needs. You arrive at a port with a cargo that someone wants and a contract that says you're supposed to get paid. The problem is that the person you're dealing with might decide that taking your cargo is easier than paying for it. If the deal goes badly enough, you could leave the port as a slave instead of a merchant. Voidship Crew. Chaos ships still need crews. Someone has to steer the ship, maintain the engines, and keep the power systems running when the fighting starts. Most of these vessels were once Imperial ships, so the basic jobs haven't changed much, but the conditions have. Chaos fleets use the warp to travel, just like Imperial ships do. Most warbands use sorcerers or bound demons to guide them instead of navigators. Captured navigators are used when available, but they are not the main way Chaos fleets find their way through the warp. The wordbearers take things even further. Some of their ships deliberately shut down their Geller fields during warp travel, allowing the crew to experience the raw immaterium as an act of worship. You still have to do your job while all of this is happening. You might be repairing an engine while the ship shakes around you, or trying to keep the power running while something outside the hull is trying to get in. The corridors may look familiar because the ship was once Imperial. Then you notice the walls have started changing. The man working beside you has grown a new limb. Weaponsmith. After centuries of warp exposure and demonic influence, a Chaos Space Marine's armor can become something much harder to deal with. The armor may grow into the warrior wearing it, change shape, or even contain a bound demon. Someone still has to keep it working, and that job belongs to the Warpsmith. A fallen tech marine in service to Chaos, the Warpsmith looks after armor and weapons used by a warband. The Dark Mechanicum works with the Warpsmiths to build weapons by combining machines with demonic power. They can bind demons into metal bodies and turn them into machines. The Iron Warriors have some of the most experienced Warpsmiths in Chaos. Their senior commanders are called Warsmiths, and many have spent centuries working on siege weapons, fortifications, and demon engines. Beneath them are mortal armorers who handle the ordinary work and keep the warband's equipment usable. You get handed a suit of armor damaged in battle. The plate is bent, something inside it is moving, and the armor has started growing into the wearer's flesh. You still have to get it open and put it back together before the next battle. Warp Conduits. Being a Psyker in the Imperium is already a dangerous life. Being a Psyker owned by the Thousand Suns is another level of misery. Sortiarius is the demon world of the Thousand Suns, a place where the laws of nature barely hold together. Continents shift, and the warp constantly leaks into the world. The Thousand Suns use the planet as a base for their sorcery, and that sorcery needs people to carry out the work. That is where the psychic thralls come in. A psyker is someone whose mind can touch the warp, and the Thousand Suns have plenty of uses for that ability. A thrall can be forced to channel warp energy for a sorcerer's rituals, strengthen psychic defenses, or perform parts of a ritual that are too dangerous for the sorcerer to risk himself. The worst part is the connection between you and your master. A sorcerer can bind a thrall's mind to his will, drawing on the psyker's power to fuel his rituals. If the ritual goes wrong, the thrall feels the consequences. If the warp pushes back, you are the one standing closest to the blast. Sorcerers view these mortal psychers as disposable objects rather than actual people. They are simply meant to be drained of energy until they burn out completely. Human Incubator. The Iron Warriors have spent thousands of years trying to solve one simple problem. They need more Space Marines, and their answer was to steal it. During their assault on the Imperial world of Hydra Cordatus, the Iron Warriors broke into the planet's gene seed repository and took uncorrupted Imperial Fist's gene seed. Medringard is their fortress world, a planet covered in giant iron fortresses, factories, weapons, and slave camps. The Iron Warriors are obsessed with building bigger and stronger fortifications, and everything on the planet exists to support that war machine. Millions of slaves keep it running, from mining and construction to the Legion's more disturbing experiments. One of those experiments was the Daemon-World. The Iron Warriors needed a way to produce new Chaos Space Marines without relying on the normal recruitment process. Their solution was to use human bodies as living incubators. Women taken from the slave population were forced into the process. You are taken from the slave pits and brought into the chambers. Your body is then forced to support the growing Marine inside you. There is no real medical care here. Your body is being changed because the Iron Warriors need it to perform a job. Warp rituals accelerate the process, pushing your body too far. The result is often horribly flawed. Some of the Marines produced by the Daemon-World emerge without skin, horribly mutated or barely functional. That does not mean the process is abandoned. The Iron Warriors only need enough of them to survive and fill the ranks of Chaos Warbands. Thanks for watching until the end. Click here to check out another video and see you in the next one.